News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth with darkhookmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, wishing you all a very happy beginning of National Ideas Month.
Oh, very good.
And in the spirit of the holiday, I think we're just going to keep this for the rest of the month. In the spirit of the holiday, folks, how do you like the sound of this? On the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, please call or text us with any of your best or worst ideas that you have had in the realm of home improvement, either that you have done or haven't done, either to the chagrin of your spouse.
Yeah, I can see Deuce reaching for the phone right now. So.
And one more final thing, if this is a good idea with you all, how about at the very end of this month, the last episode of the month, whoever has the best idea from all the texts, we'll send them some Tool Talk Radio swag.
Wow. Okay. Well, that you got to look at Allan on that. He's the swag master. So
Swag
is that
meister,
fair
yeah.
enough, Allan? Okay.
That's
Swag
okay.
package,
I know where to send a bill.
It has
Okay.
a really good idea. It has to be a really good idea.
I think that's one of you. Okay, so we're starting off National Ideas Month with
International
a pretty good idea.
ideas.
International ideas. So call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. And while you've got your phone handy, go ahead and go over to Facebook and go to @Tool Talk Radio and check out the posts we've made over there. Well, Allan, so this week it's funny, boy. There's a little twist in the air.
Serendipity.
There's some serendipity and some new things in the air. Well, we thought for great moments in building history, we're going to start a little bit of a new series, and we're going to call this the history of great building materials. Because let's face it, without certain building materials, our society looks a lot different. And so one of those front and center is going to be the history of the I-beam. And you're gonna walk us through that.
We got a lot to go through there.
And we might, if we have time, get to tempered glass. And people might go, wow, glass and steel. Well, I mean, go to any city and see what it looks like without that. So that's one thing. And then in Tool Tales, tell me what you think of this. My son Jeremy was working with me this week, and this is building a dog ramp without a tape measure. Not only a good name for a country western song, but it was an interesting technique. Well, I was showing him you can make some things with simple tools like a level or string or whatever, and we've constructed a dog ramp basically without even pulling out the tape measure. He really got a kick out of it and everything. So your week in review sounds pretty wide-ranging. It sounds like you were accommodating some bad design. And
oh, my gosh. This is one of these things where my disdain for decorators is somewhat legendary.
Yeah.
And after a number of changes, the client made the final decision. Mm-hmm. So I had to rework an entire bathroom wall to actually get rid of the foofy ideas and actually do what the client wanted.
It sounds a lot like what we talked about last week about really thinking through a room design before you just say, well, the light goes here, the door goes here, the whatever.
Yeah,
well,
it's not how it worked.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And then Max has some horticultural questions, right?
It's not as riveting as you think. It's just an inquiry.
Okay. Well, I had one as well, too, because as long as you mentioned that, I thought, well, I got some. So Allan might be. And I mean, let's face it, spring is in the air, at least kind of.
It's already on, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just say myself and a variety of garden centers have become very good friends this week.
There you go. So a lot to get to here on Tool Talk Radio. But before we get to any of those things, it's time for our must-have item of the week, brought to us by our new sponsor, Groundworks, who is all about the protection of the foundation of your home. And we'll be talking about them later. But, Allan, tell people what I'm holding up.
Well, you're actually holding up an integral tool for Groundworks.
I bet they have a nice version of this.
I bet they do. What you have there is basically a sniffer. That is a gas detection device.
Yeah, and if you're trying to picture what this looks like, well, you don't have to picture it. You can go to our Facebook page and check it out. But to me, when I look at it, Allan, it looks a little bit like the phaser from Star Trek The Next Generation with a long, flexible line on the end with a little. It looks like a flashlight end, but it's not. It's a sensor. You can see.
Right.
It almost looks like a microphone. Like it's got the little,
it's got the
little
cute
screen
little,
on there on the end. But this is a gas leak detector, and I just bought it this week, and it's interesting because this is going to actually expand into a bigger conversation. So let me give you the story behind this. So basically, we know last week, it seems like this happened just after the show. It's funny how many things happen just after the show, and I have to wait a whole week to talk about it. But we had that really cold weather. I think it dropped down to like 11 degrees or something, and we had a little cold snap. Well, I think I mentioned too that my daughter's house, she finally sold it. Thank goodness. But we've been checking on the house because it's empty, and so every day or every other day we go there. Well, I walked into this house, and I'm telling you, man, you know how we talked about the gas leak before when you open it? Well, this was the whole house smelled like gas. It was bad. And I went in, and it was coming from the hot water tank. And so I called the plumbers, and they got over there and they detected, and it was coming from a pipe. Luckily, all that was required was to tighten it up. They might have put some new, thread tape.
Right. And
it was fixed. Well, literally the same day, we developed a gas leak in our garage. Now, we have this old, like I said, our house is 70 years old, actually 73 now, and it's in the garage, that in my corner, some previous homeowner stuck a gas, it's like a mini gas furnace out there. It's been unplugged. We never use it, but the gas line was still hooked to it.
Yes.
Well, one of those valves just finally, I guess, failed, and it was bad. So MLGW got over there really quickly. And then, of course, they go through your whole house and they check it out to make sure there's nothing bad. And so, luckily, I don't have a gas stove or anything like that. My hot water tank's fairly recent and everything. But the thing is, luckily for me, I knew how to fix this. They turned the gas off, and all I had to do was disconnect it and cap it off. And finally, now I have an excuse to haul that stupid old
take that thing down
and take it down. But Allan, so my wife was losing her mind. She was just like, she was thinking of all these horrible things.
Yes.
And so I bought this, and I got to tell you, man, it costs $120, and it really works. Like we were using it, it's very sensitive. It works great, and it takes like 4 AAA batteries. So now I said, hey, anytime you're concerned, walk around. I showed her how to use it. It's very, very easy to use, but it got me thinking because it seems very related to the cold weather. And then, of course, we know the horrible news about Gene Hackman and his family and everything, and they think it could be related to that. And I'm wondering, so I'm looking at you, is cold weather, does it make it prone to gas leaks? Like, because, we think of water lines breaking, but do gas lines
It is
break?
not cold weather.
Okay.
It is temperature shifts.
So big swings in temperature.
And no, we haven't had any of those in the last month, have we, Joe?
No
it's
kidding,
been 70 during the day and 28 at night.
Right.
20, 30-degree shifts. All right, here's what's going on. Your basic rules of contraction and expansion. Of everything from my new best friend, the frost-free water spigot.
Oh, yeah.
That I think everybody should have these days because, well, technology has changed, moved up, and has improved. In this particular case, Joe, any connection made by mankind is sooner or later, it's going to fail.
I mean, it seems inevitable. If it's flexing and whatever, I mean, it could slowly untwist.
Eventually, and here's another weird little thing I love to add in. You and I say this constantly because we're a little more exposed to it, but your house doesn't sit still.
Right.
Your house contracts and expands with the weather, with your air conditioning, with your heater, and these tiny, tiny little motions wear on things like cabinet doors. They wear on connections like your gas connection, or they can wear on something being plugged into a wall socket. So all of this action, and it's not any one thing. It's, you look up and 30 years have gone by, and now this connection's not as tight as it used to be.
Yeah, because this heater, for all I know, this heater could have been in there for like 50
70 years.
I don't know. It's old, and it's just been sitting there in the corner. So,
and it's had gas pressure in it, and it's been expanding and contracting all these years. And finally, that little connection got loose just enough for that gas pressure to begin to escape.
I did have a quick question because you're mentioning gas pressure. Like I'm thinking of a water leak. Okay, you have a water leak, you cut the water off, and within seconds it blasts itself out of the, blasts itself out of the water line. Well, this gas leak, even with the gas turned off and disconnected and whatever, it lingered for hours.
Well,
so
that's because there's still gas in the line.
Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about how gas behaves
Mm-hmm.
and to help protect you, because this is an important thing. So you're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Remember before when I was talking about smelly garbage standing around being useless? That was a metaphor. I was actually talking about you.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we bought, it's a serious thing, but we were off the air. I was learning a little bit about this new device that I just bought. Our must-have item of the week is a electronic gas leak detector, which is pretty portable. It runs on 4 AAA batteries, and it's really sensitive, and it's really handy. This one is a little nicer than some others, Allan. I wanted my wife to have some peace of mind because she was stressing out. We had a gas leak in the garage and everything. But this one, what I'm learning too, is this will detect all combustibles, which includes rubbing alcohol or like glue or things like that. And you even said that animals that are, let's just say, a little gassy, it'll even detect that.
It'll let you know what the dog just did under the table.
Yeah, because my daughter's dog, Norma, sometimes she gets a little woo. I want to see what she'd probably hit 5 bars on this thing.
The dog's going to go woo, and then that's going to go woo. I'm very familiar with that particular model.
Yeah.
I've used it many times. I also use that on building inspections.
Okay, talk to me.
Because, let's go back to where water is always the enemy. And if you have water under something or pooling under something where you now have some decay going on, you occasionally get a little methane. And you have built a number of docks and other such thing for people. And a big problem with stationary ponds and stuff like that is the buildup of sediments in the bottom, creating methane gas.
Interesting.
And methane gas is quite flammable.
So are you saying that when I'm digging the post holes and things like that, I have to be concerned about methane gas?
Not so much digging a post hole or something like that, but when we're talking about the overall safety of a facility.
Yeah.
And that could be your home, a hospital, a restaurant, of periodically making an inspection. Again, I use that exact unit you have as part of a building inspection because, and again, we talk about this on our 30 Years of Stupid segment. You have no idea what somebody else did or buried or capped or didn't cap or hid in the walls.
It's funny you say that because when we talk about being in, when we talk about home improvement or we talk about just basically, like you said, 30 years of stupid, we always talk about how our home moves and how we talk about things like considering engineering and geometry and structure. Well, we also have to think about chemistry. There's so much chemistry that goes into home improvement, especially like with HVAC or our friends at Groundworks. They're dealing with gases and things from foundation problems and things like that.
Well, you just kind of hit on a topic. Now, this isn't necessarily a huge topic for our listeners here in Memphis, but I'm going to go up to one of our little sister cities right up the road here to Nashville. And my house in Memphis, I have an over and under.
Yeah.
My downstairs is partially underground by about 4 or 5 feet. And my house in Nashville would not be one of the better ideas. Because it's a Piedmont area and they have radon gas. Not everybody, not everywhere, not everything, but because my house is partially subterranean, it could be subject to radon gas leakage.
Now, what's Piedmont? Is that a type of moss?
Well, no, it's the soil and rock layers.
Oh, I see.
So as you drive to Nashville, you'll notice you're getting into hillier, rockier territory, which if you continue driving some of those country roads where they actually cut through the rock to make the level road, there are even places where, especially towards Kentucky, where you can see a coal seam.
Mm-hmm.
You'll actually see the seam running along there, and guess what, guys? That's where a lot of natural gas and stuff comes from.
It makes sense. I mean, you have all this stuff being compressed and coagulating and who knows what other reactions going on.
Yeah, so it's never a bad idea to, and again, this is not something you need to really freak out about. You don't need to run out and, get this as a high emergency type thing. But if you are in the business of checking buildings, you are in the business, or you're trying to sell a home, or you're inspecting a home, or you're thinking about buying one, don't feel self-conscious breaking something like this out and walking around the house and investigating the closets and the basement if it has one, the air conditioning, the connection for the stove, the dryers, hot water tanks, and make sure that you are good and clean and safe.
Well, and, I'm glad you mentioned air conditioning, because one thing we should say, because there is a new refrigerant that's out today, it's safe. However, technically it's flammable. If there's air conditioning units under the right conditions.
Yes.
So I'll just tell you this, for the $120 we spent on this, if we're ever even half thinking about it, in fact, my wife said from now on, maybe every 4 or 5 months, she's going to walk around, check all the connections. Maybe now that you've told me this, I think what we'll do is during the change of seasons, like when you get those, especially in the spring and the winter, just check out, just check out the connections, and just to give you some peace of mind, I think. So
I was curious about, for people living in the Mid-South, are there gases that are rare but are very pernicious if they are found in a person's home, other than like what you mentioned, like with radon?
Well, this is where we're going to get into what happened here 100 years ago. We have a few instances in Midtown where, as the old joke used to go, contractors bury their dead. So the contractor moved in, and we're talking 100 years ago at this point, and there was a low spot in the area they were going to develop. So guess where all of the bushes and the trees and everything went, and it got covered over with soil, and they packed it down with a bulldozer, and somebody came along and said, "This is good."
Yeah.
50 years later, those logs are breaking down. Everything is turning back into soil, but it doesn't necessarily have the same consistency, and all of these things produce gases.
Yeah.
Most prominently of which is methane. Normally, methane naturally produced is not a danger. However, in an unusual situation like your house may be built over the top of somebody else's waste site.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of times we have no real way of knowing because we don't know what happened 100 years ago or 150 years ago.
Right.
And, it may have been perfectly fine for 50 years or 60 years until something's changed. Now, in Florida, for those of you listening in Florida, they will freely tell you that the water table changing is a big, big thing in Florida. Because as the water table rises, it pushes up the topsoil. And as the water table falls, it can't even create a sinkhole.
I was just thinking because I mean, it seems like sinkholes would be the main thing you'd get out of this too.
And so, so here is where again, this is just a simple, light, little, easy tool. No panic. I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but if one of these little tools happens to go off while you're looking at buying a new home,
yeah,
hey, there's an issue.
Yeah,
let's find the issue up front, and then you don't have an issue anymore.
Yeah.
Talk about great ideas throughout history. That just the whole idea of having like an electrical thing that doesn't require a canary in the coal mine seems like a great idea.
For this, so.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. I'd like to remind the listeners one more time, another time, that if you have any of your great ideas during the International Ideas Month, please do call or text us with your pictures and videos and text.
Yeah. As long as your idea isn't get these guys off the air, because no.
Yeah, well, no way.
I mean, I don't mind it.
But anyway, okay. Well, that was good. I think it was worth unpacking that to the extent we did, because I mean it's an important topic.
Well,
so.
being safe is never being sorry. This is again, and if you want a really good excuse to buy kind of a cool, fun tool,
yeah,
it is. I will say this just as kind of a little side note. It is kind of fun going around the house with the gas sniffer.
Yeah,
and just kind of walking around, looking at stuff. Go check out the yard. Go look at your garden. See what you got.
Pointing
at
at the
kids
dog.
do.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, when we come back, Max has a horticultural question for Allan.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You have paid the price for your lack of vision.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we were going over, all the we were going over the gases in your home to deal with, and gas leak detection and things like that. And just one last thing, because we got to move on. We can't make the whole show about that. But, Allan, even a small gas leak, or even gases produced naturally by decaying wood, or just think, even if it's not going to blow your house up, it is not good to breathe in. I just imagine what that's doing to your brain cells. One little small trickle of gas every day that you're constantly breathing in. So,
well, then you get
it can't be good.
Yeah, you get into your molds and mildews and that kind of stuff. But that'll be like next week's show. We'll talk about that.
Right. Keep the air clean though, and call our friends at Groundworks, because they deal with that, and they can go to the root cause of those.
Especially if you've got a crack in your foundation, do not play with that.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, let's shift gears. Max, I know you had some questions for Allan, or a question, or.
Well, this is all related to my bonsai.
Oh, ooh, all right.
Your bonsai plant, is that thing still going?
That's exactly why I have to ask Allan about this.
Oh.
It's been like 6 years or so ever since my mom gifted me this like bonsai, which I never expected to last this long. It's like a ficus ginseng bonsai. And so
so it's a little ficus. Got it.
Yeah. So the thing is I transferred it to new soil about like 2 years ago, and like a new pot about 2 years ago. I haven't done anything extraordinary to keep it alive, save for like my weekly watering of it and like a spritz on each side of it, like to give its leaves, because it likes humidity.
Right.
And so, but the thing is I just leave it alone in this nice little sunny corner. And it's like, it's got like fungus on its roots. It's got like, crud on like the pot itself, like from like where water kind of builds up or whatever.
Right.
And the thing is, it's just not dying. And not only is it not dying, but it's actually just like thriving where it's planted. It's like, okay, now it's got like new leaves, and it even had new leaves during the winter. So it's like, why is this thing not dying despite my best efforts?
Wait a minute.
I'm not trying to undermine it. I'm just like asking, like, what is this?
Okay. Well, the answer to your question is going to be the word bacteria.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought it had to do with pruning, but
nope.
go ahead.
Nope.
I don't prune it.
That's what I'm saying.
The answer is going to be bacteria. Soil does not need to be sterile.
Yeah, I can understand.
So basically, where a plant gets its nutrition from is the bacterial decay or fungal decay of organic matter.
Okay.
So this is why when you move into that brand new subdivision, your garden is terrible.
What do you mean
because
by that?
they bulldozed everything.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that lovely top 4 to 6 inches of bacterially active topsoil may have gotten removed. So in the case of your bonsai, what you're looking at is a little microclimate, and that little bonsai has achieved the balance that a bonsai is supposed to. And the reason I want to talk about this just a little bit is houseplants are a huge topic. And one of the worst things that happens to them is minerals from the water or from too much fertilizer builds up in the soil, and it's counterproductive to actually having the good bacteria and the good fungal growth that the plant actually needs.
So it's almost like we need to kind of get out of its own way.
The plant wants to live, and a ficus is hard to kill. So, I mean, it wasn't like you got a very delicate type bonsai. You got a good, solid, a ficus is a great choice if you're a beginning bonsai person, or you like yourself. Thank you for the gift. It's lovely. It kind of matches my motif. It's going to live over here in the corner.
Yeah.
Good. It's an excellent choice for that. However, the bonsai people, whoever originally bonsai'd this, put the proper soil mixture underneath it that was, I'm going to call it, a living soil. And that meant even though you've transferred it into a larger pot, you've given it some fresh dirt, which is some fresh nutrients, it brought the little fungal growth and the bacterial growth from the original pot with it. So that has just merely moved into the new soil, and the process is continuing.
So fungus isn't necessarily something to fear with the bonsai. It's something more to embrace.
Depending upon which one. There are fungal growths that will kill your plant. In your case, this ficus seems to have achieved its balance, and life is good.
Friendly fungus.
And, it's kind of like when somebody goes, well, how do I know it's when it doesn't work? Well, it'll start looking like it's dying. If it's not dying, if it's growing, if it's putting on leaves and it's happy, you're doing good.
Like I said it before, I haven't pruned it on its own. I know pruning is a part of bonsai planting, but the thing is like it's almost pruning the bad leaves on its own.
A lot of times it will, because it only has so much nutrients to draw from. This is what happens when you get out kind of like in a forest. There's a lot going on underground with those roots. There is a lot of trade-offs and agreements between bacteria, funguses, and the other plants. So this is how come somebody can go buy the same plant you did, go buy the exact same tree at the exact same nursery the same day, and their tree looks like it's doing fantastic in their front yard, and you live across the street and the same tree is doing terrible. And that is just because there was a better blend, a better living matrix in their front yard than yours.
Okay.
So this is why you dig the hole out twice as big, you add good soil, you plant stuff in, you make sure it's got the proper amount of water. And in a bonsai is a great way of figuring this out in a microclimate.
It makes me think that I remember you were talking about bad fungus a while back, how a type of bad fungus, this is sort of a warning for all homeowners. If you see, like, what is it, the orange fungus on the root, like on the branches, that means it's going to fall down. Is that correct?
Well, all right, there's a wide variety of things. If you see any form of mushroom growth on a tree in your yard, whether it be a slime mold like an orange, or you see a common one you see here is turkey tail, which is the kind of scalloped edge looking ones.
Yeah.
These things grow on decaying wood. So nature is trying to throw you a sign that branch is either dead or dying, and it's going to come down and visit you sometime soon.
Yeah, those things. Yeah, and in fact, you see that a lot in limbs. They fall in your yard,
especially
it's like
in
it's
oak
covered
trees.
I know your neighbor's yard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes you don't see it until it falls off because it's growing on the
Right.
top or something. But you're making me think of something else because so in our backyard, as I've said many times, we have a pretty big backyard.
Yep.
And my wife is adopted for whatever reason. I don't know how I pulled this off, but somehow she's become really interested in taking care of the yard. I'm like, well, have at it. Fine with me. It's
You
one
bought
less
the
job.
right tools.
Right. Well, so here's the thing, though. She's adopted this new thing of when all the leaves fall, she doesn't get them up immediately.
No.
She actually waits after the winter is over. Like she's getting ready to deal with the leaves now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our backyard, the previous owner years ago planted daffodils, those yellow flowers. And I guess our yard must have looked a lot different 30 or 40 years ago because there was like this whole row that looked like maybe she had like a flower garden or something. And, okay. Well, we don't take any care of that yard. We literally, she'll cut, my wife will cut the grass. She'll mulch up leaves. But every spring, in fact, they just started blooming. These things bloom like we're at a flower shop. I mean, these things look great and we do nothing to take care of them. So,
and that's exactly what they want you to do.
Is that what because I'm sure we're running over the stems and everything once they.
All right. Well, first off, you're dealing with a bulbing plant.
Okay.
That is a jonquil or daffodil. It's all the same family. And what you're looking at is about 3 to 4 inches under the soil is a onion-like bulb. And it spends the entire rest of the year storing up energy. And it is one of the early spring burst through plants because it wants to get up and get its jobs done, aka I want to flower, I want to reproduce, I want to get all this done basically before the competition gets here. So
that's pretty funny. Yeah.
Okay. One of the properties I was working on last year had daffodils and jonquils all over the yard, out in the front yard. And when they came up last spring, I dug them all up.
Yeah.
Dug up every one of them and moved them into the flower beds.
Okay.
So I was actually by that property yesterday, and the front beds are now bursting with green. And they're actually beginning to bloom. And you got the bright yellow blooms. So instead of having them scattered all over the yard, kind of growing wild, I just moved them into the beds and just gave the homeowner a lot of free landscaping from their own yard.
So daffodils are a good starter flower if you're into that stuff. Because they look nice. I mean, I don't know how long they stay bloomed for, but
they'll be going good for about the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, they are they really are just biting at the bit to get up out of that ground the moment winter's almost over.
Yeah.
So for the beginner bonsaiists, it's a ficus, which is good. And for beginner flower people, it's daffodils.
Daffodils.
Okay. Sounds good. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. When we come back, we're going to have a tool tale.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You're making a plan while I'm being a man, just winging it.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, jump over to Facebook and go to @ToolTalkRadio and check out the posts we've made over there. We have a little series that we're introducing for our great moments in building history coming up in the next hour of the show. We're going to find out what Allan did this week. There's a lot. There's a lot on the table.
And just a friendly reminder to folks, this month is International Ideas Month. So please call or text us with your images, your videos, or your stories, your war stories about some of the best and worst ideas you have had.
Yeah, I guess
in the realm of home improvement.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, I can picture a couple of these listeners out there with some, keep these pictures tasteful. I'm just thinking of some of the pictures Deuce has sent us over the past. But and in a minute we have a tool tale. But before we get to that tool tale, we want to talk about our friends over at Groundworks, and it's really relevant. It's interesting Okay, so they deal with the foundation of your home. They deal with crawl spaces and keeping a healthy basement. Basically, the bedrock of your home. It starts from the ground up. And there are so many situations when it comes to your foundation or your crawl space or your basement, where these issues manifest themselves in an unusual way. If you have one area of the house where ants are constantly crawling up the side, if you walk across that floor on the first floor and there's this springy kind of whatever,
It's
this
bouncy.
weak point, it's bouncy. If you have, unpleasant smells, mildew, if you have creaking, if you have that weird crack above your door, there's all these things. And it's almost like, the people at Groundworks, they almost have to be like detectives. It's almost a Sherlock Holmes situation, but that's because you have leaks. You have something getting under your foundation and it weakens your home. And I know that sounds scary and it sounds expensive, and it isn't always the case. The big thing is that you can't ignore it. The foundation is something that has to be dealt with, and there's nobody better than our friends over at Groundworks. They'll come by. It's a free inspection. I mean, that alone is the peace of mind you want, and they'll tell you what the situation is, and they can deal with all of your issues. And it's also, just like we said, this is something as a homeowner you have to, everything else, I mean, it's almost like you don't have a healthy home without a healthy foundation. So get in touch with Groundworks. You can go to their website at groundworks.com and book your free inspection with them today. Okay, I have something I wanted to get to.
And now, Tool Tales with Tool Talk Radio.
So this week, Allan, we're at the point, the weather was so nice, I just hated to be inside. And so this project, we're really wrapping up the final stages of this big project I've been on in Midtown. And basically, this is a customer. They have a laundry room that I built for them, but this laundry room is going to be multifunctional. It's got a ton of storage. It's actually a big space. So, because they're the type of people, they go to Costco and they buy the 50 bags or the 50 pack of paper towels and those types of things. So I built all sorts of storage, but also this is going to be a space where if they go out for 6 or 7 hours, they want the dogs to have the freedom to go in and out. So we bought they bought a really nice dog door. Well, this dog door sits about 2 feet off the ground, and it's about 8 feet away from the driveway. And so the idea would be, let's have the ramp drop down onto the driveway, and that way they're not getting all muddy and tracking stuff into the house, and they can come and go as they want. So, well, my son Jeremy was with me, and he was helping me build this, and he was really marveling because at no point during this project did I even pull out the tape measure. Now, I didn't finish, so basically I let him dig the holes, let the kid do the grunt labor. He was doing all this, but we measured the post where to chop them off. We had a miter saw, we had a level and a drill and some screws. Now it's basically all we were using, and a pencil. But he was really getting a kick out of building something without really measuring anything. And I said, well, if you whatever. So I wanted to talk about that. There's a certain primal a primal satisfaction when you can do stuff, and it works perfectly. I mean, this ramp is going to be solid. But have you ever built things using just like a plumb bob or a level or things like that? Because it's kind of cool. I said, we're not building the Sistine Chapel here. This is going to be functional. It just has to be even and work.
So you really are you're making a plan while I'm being a man, just winging it.
Exactly. Yeah, the Aquabats would be proud of what we did. But no, I mean, sometimes you're in a situation where you don't want to waste time either. This is, I'm on the clock for these customers, and I don't need to make a bigger ordeal about it than
the amount of stuff I have built with a string.
There you go. It's fun.
Oh, my gosh. Well, all right. All you really are talking about is just having a common point.
There you go.
So I want this to be as wide as the door. Okay, well, I can take a piece of string, stretch it across the door, and it's this big, put a knot right there. So I need everything to be this wide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the same thing. It is the exact same technique we've been using for about 12,000 years. building almost everything. All a tape measure is a method of common conversation.
Yeah.
Because I can't yell at you on the other side of the wall and go, I need a board this big.
Yeah.
But I can yell at you, I need a board 28 inches.
Right.
But since we're not working that far apart, I can take a string and say, okay, it's the width of the door is this. I'm going to put a little knot right here. Now, everything we cut needs to fit inside of this string.
Right.
Now, my question is with you all, since you guys are more seasoned at this, is this just the result of like habit and muscle memory to where you could kind of approximate it? Because I'm imagining someone like your son, Jeremy, who's kind of fresh to the industry, you have to first learn the measurements before you can learn to not rely on it anymore. It's like the guys who are building the pyramids. It's like Mr. So-and-so was, having to use his cubit measurer, and then eventually he knew how long 3 cubits was without even having to use it anymore. But that's because he was a seasoned pro.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, I was mostly teaching him principles, and Allan mentioned the word common point. I think, what did you say? A common point.
Yeah.
Okay. So this dog ramp is 3 feet wide. It's up, and I didn't want it connected to the house. I wanted it to be freestanding because I don't want an opportunity for water or anything to get into the house. So I want the dogs they're going to step out, it's going to be 2 inches or so from the house. So hopefully I can make it where they don't get their paws in there. But I said, Jeremy, the only important hole, because there were 6 holes, is this one right here. It was the tallest one it was going to be the one closest to the back of the dog door. So I said, once we establish this, we can build around all of that. We only need a level. We don't even, and even we can take this board here and we can just measure the front and the back. So we had 2 10-foot 2x8s, and we just ran those and rested them against the driveway. Only I rested it on a board that was like 3/4 of an inch off the ground. And he just got a big kick out of I think, when we get to the decking and stuff, we are going to use tape measures and things, but he really just got a kick out of the whole notion of you can just hold the board here, you put the level here, you scribe a line here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there's something to be said for understanding that. Well, and it's fast. It's a lot faster doing it that way.
Well, as I have explained to crew after crew over the last 40 years, is that I don't know everything, but I don't have a fear of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're comfortable and you're confident, and again, I will defer to Max a little bit. We've all got the experience. You and I've got the experience. This ain't the first dog run we've made.
Right.
So we pretty much know how it's going to go.
Yeah, but it was cool. And if you're out there and you've had experience with building something, on a wing and a prayer, and it's come out well, let us know. So, all right, well, hour 1 of Tool Talk Radio's in the can, but stand by. We have a lot coming up in the second hour.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, boy, we've been talking about quite a bit this morning. And we talked about poisonous gases and methane and things like that, and we didn't ruin anybody's breakfast. So I think we handled it. We navigated it well, but all bets are off because now we're going to find out what Allan did this week.
Oh, the humanity.
All right. And if your eardrums are still intact, what did you do this week? I'm looking at my notes. It looks...
Oh, my gosh. Let's just head straight to the bathroom.
Well, I got my gas detector here.
Here we go.
We're ready to go. Okay.
So, yeah, I have a tale of 2 dueling bathrooms. One yesterday, I went and inspected a bathroom for installation. So, I'm going in, make sure the floors are down, everything's done. It is now ready for a vanity, a sink, and a toilet.
Okay.
Man, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be straightforward, clean, easy. Should be.
You just jinxed the whole thing.
Should
Why would
be
you
wonderful.
say that?
But yeah, I could get out of the jinx by what they did in the other bathroom.
Okay.
And this was one of those things where It was designed a while ago. We're just now finishing this part up. And the lights for the bathroom came in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The bathroom wall was nowhere even close designed for these lights.
Wait a minute. So somebody went to the store. They liked these lights.
They ordered these things a while back.
Without
they are
considering how they're going to actually fit.
LED backlit mirrors. But,
ooh, I like those. But
they're gorgeous. I got to give you, Joe, they're absolutely beautiful. But the bathroom wall was designed not for 2 large LED backlit mirrors, but for 3 little wall sconces to hang over the sinks.
My question is also, is it the color of the restroom, like the paint itself or the tiling, that also kind of negatively affects how light is shown through it?
We're not even worried about that at this point because there was no place to put these mirrors.
That's fair.
Oh, wow. Okay, so...
And, of course, everybody's standing back there staring at these 3 holes in the wall with wires in them that are not going to work. The mirrors weren't even going to cover the holes. Basically, the mirrors were going to go between the holes in the walls.
So wait, were these walls finished? Like they're thinking, okay, spackled up, ready to go?
They're painted. It's there.
So what a waste of...
And I'm sitting there looking at that, and I'm like, I go walk out to the truck, come back with my little vibrating cutter.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, give me a level and a pen. Here we go. We're going to draw this out. And then, of course, you just watch the horror as you go, and start cutting it out. So I cut it out, and, happily, I give massive kudos to an electrician that did the right job.
Okay.
Because everything underneath there was exactly what I needed, just they got told to put them in the wrong places.
Yeah. Okay.
So all I needed to do was move from the inside of this 2x4 16 inches the other direction into the wall to the other side of the 2x4.
So there's enough extra wiring to move it?
All I got to do is move the staple, move the wire, and instead of the big box, actually I got to put in a GFI because the mirrors came with plugs.
Oh, nice.
So now instead of a hardwired item into the wall, there's now a beautiful GFI plug.
What does GFI stand for?
That is your ground fault interrupt.
There you go.
Because within 6 feet of water, you should have a GFI.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great idea. And everybody goes, well, I don't understand. It's like, well, look at it this way. Yes, there is a breaker, but the breaker is designed for an overload. The GFI socket is a lot closer to you, and in the event of a water electrical accident, this is going to kick off a lot faster than that breaker out at the breaker box.
And it's that kind of outlet where it's got the little reset button and test button, right?
Yes.
It's like a red button.
Oh my gosh, yes. Just press the little buttons.
There you go.
So, the good news is it wasn't as horrible as everybody thought it was, but the solution was pretty shocking to everybody. They're like, oh, he cut the whole wall out. And I went, no, I cut the whole wall out carefully.
Right. Yeah, because you can just put it back, hopefully.
I'm honestly going to cut 2 holes in the sheetrock I just took out for the wall, for the new GFI sockets, and I'm going to put the whole thing back up, and I'm going to go back and tape and mud and clean, and in a day or two when it's completely cured, I'm going to sand it, and you know what? All of this work is going to magically disappear.
I just want to say something out there for somebody that's listening, and they're going, oh, so moving an outlet isn't that big a deal. Well,
it can be.
It sure can be, especially in a bathroom. It's like, oh, well, there's a drain pipe in the way. There's this. There's not enough extra wire. There's sometimes, I mean, you were lucky, like you said. But this could turn into a big
I was
pain.
singing somebody's praises that I've never met.
Right.
Because happily, where they had put the power was just 16 inches from where I actually needed it.
Okay.
But that was quite a bit of sheetrock work and all that. So the biggest thing, I guess the takeaway here is don't freak out about the job until you know what you're up against.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That sounds like a Sun Tzu quote.
It is. Because, well, a lot of people talk themselves out of doing something because they just don't know how much work is it going to be. And other people dive into some of these things like, well, let's just move this wall. All right. I remember as a kid trying to imagine how you moved a wall.
Oh, yeah.
Legos?
Yeah, I mean, you're a kid. And I remember my very first construction job when somebody said, let's move a wall. And I went, finally, I'm going to see somebody move a wall. Imagine my shock when they tore down the wall and built another one.
Right.
It's like, all right, so you don't move a wall. You tear one down and you build another one where you want it.
So it's semantics.
Yeah. Although,
well, when you're 8 years old and somebody says we're moving a wall, man, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
When you're 18 on a job crew, you're going, oh, I got to tear this down.
In fairness, though, if you're framing a house or if you're framing a project, before the sheetrock and everything else.
Before the sheetrock goes up,
just unscrew
you can move it.
Yeah.
It makes me think of those bamboo doors in like traditional like Asian homes, like those shoji sliding ones where like you can literally remove them and like put them somewhere else or whatever.
All right. In deference
Modular.
to that, I did get to build a deluxe barn door.
Okay, that's pretty
this
cool.
week. And I got to tell you, I didn't think too much of it until we got it stained. And I just...
It's funny how that works.
Oh, my gosh. Joe, you and I have had the stain conversation many times over the years. And this is one of those instances where really uninteresting pine boards burst into life. And this is going to be a centerpiece. It's a pantry cover.
So is it like on the sliding?
It's got the black
and
hardware and the rail and everything. And I didn't think much of the idea until we got done with the door.
Right.
And where the door is going to go, again, it's over a pantry.
Yeah.
So this is going to be kind of a high volume place. So instead of having a door that's open and in the way, you now really have some big, heavy black iron decorative wall art. And I just, once again, properly stained, properly finished, some really plain lumber turned into absolute artwork.
Now, I saw a picture of this barn door. You should probably post it because the other thing about that, it sure looks heavy to me, man. And
it is not light.
Yeah.
I will freely tell you, it is not light.
Now, it's hanging, so that's like it doesn't have the stresses on it that it would if it was on a hinge or if it was on hinges, so...
And we did something terribly sneaky because I was there when we installed that wall that it's going to hang on.
Yeah.
And it's not going to hang on wall mollies. We actually backboarded that whole thing in 2x8.
Okay,
so it is
not
going to
anywhere.
be absolutely rock solid for the next 100 years.
Yeah, because those barn doors, those
They're
sliding
heavy.
barn, well, they look cool, but that hardware, boy, you want to bite into it. You want it hitting a stud or something like what you did.
Yeah, you want it good. We actually 2x8'd the inside of the wall before the sheetrock went up. So I have absolute confidence that this door is going to work perfectly for decades.
You're just really jinxing yourself over and
I
over.
am.
But okay.
I am.
I will say this.
I paid for it in the bathroom. I can enjoy a couple of easy jobs the rest of the house.
I do like those sliding barn doors. The one thing I will say, though, on a pantry, they're great. Dividing two rooms, they're great. I don't want them in a bathroth.
No,
you get like that 2-inch.
No,
if you don't want, if you don't care about privacy, well, go ahead.
I don't want to share the experience.
Yeah. That sounds good. It sounds like a pretty positive week in review. So, all right. Well, hey, this is going to be interesting. We're starting a new series for great moments in building history, and we're going to talk about the history of great building materials, starting with the I-beam.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I assure you, Lord Vader, my men are working as fast as they can.
Perhaps I can find new ways to motivate them.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And we just want to remind you that this is International Ideas Month. And we want to hear from you with your, good ideas and bad ideas are always fun, too.
Like that Rocky and Bullwinkle thing? Good idea, bad idea. Or was that the Animaniacs?
Oh, yeah, that was Animaniacs. Get your cartoons straight, Max. Yeah, that was the Animaniacs. And some of the bad ideas are probably going to be more entertaining as well. So,
and not only that, too, but I'm just putting it out there, if Allan consents, at the end of the month, during the last episode of the month, whoever sends in the best, we can include callers too. Whoever sends in the best good or bad idea will win some Tool Talk Radio swag.
I think we can manage that.
I think that's a good idea.
Especially if it's a bad idea that your wife really overreacted to and it caused a lot of discord in your home, because that's more fun. That stuff's more entertaining. But
we profit from your misery.
Exactly. All right, let's shift gears, Max.
And now, great moments in building history.
Okay, now this is going to be a new series. We'll be dropping in on this topic in the weeks ahead. But we thought, in addition to celebrating great buildings and great, structures and great constructions for great moments in building history, why not talk about the history of great building materials? Because we don't have, the city, like, for example, today we're going to talk about the I-beam, and if we have time, we'll talk about tempered glass. But, I mean, just go to any big city, and you don't really have a city without that, right?
That's true. All right, let's set the Wayback Machine and figure out why we have all these wonderful things. Because in 1871, we had something called the Great Chicago Fire.
Yep.
Everything was made out of wood, and you could only build it 2 or 3 stories high.
Yeah.
And Mrs. O'Leary's cow, and his gang of ninjas, apparently burned down Chicago.
Although that's debatable. They said somebody else.
The cow didn't do it.
It's not the ninjas?
Yeah, well,
Mrs. O'Leary got a bad rap.
Yeah, the cow got a bad rap on that.
Right.
They had to blame somebody, so a cow seemed pretty good.
Yeah.
So because of that, everybody went, all right, we gotta do better than this. A cheap, easy material at the time was something that we would call today wrought iron.
Right.
Wrought iron doesn't work so good. It's brittle. It'll break.
We have wrought iron. We've had wrought iron like
we have gates and fittings and machinery.
You could drop it in the ground and it'll snap. Yeah.
But you can break. Wrought iron furniture will break.
Isn't there a lyric in London Bridge? Iron and steel will bend and bow. So like that sort of wrought iron will like bend very easily.
Yep.
Wrought iron? Is it fair to call it the MDF of metal? Like, I mean, when I look at it, it looks like it's almost like grainy. Something fused together.
It's barely not iron ore.
Right.
It's just kind of beaten into shape.
Okay.
So we're not going to get fully into the history of steel, but then somebody came up with the idea of let's add a little carbon, let's add a little nickel, maybe a little silicone, and hey, this stuff is a lot better. Then we get to mention our old buddy, what was his name there? Oh, yeah, Eiffel.
Yeah.
Who decided
he built something.
Steel was a cool idea. Because it could be mostly lightweight. You could make a lot of it. Iron is not exactly rare.
Yeah.
So we started working on that. The problem is it takes a lot of it and a lot of geometry to get any strength out of it.
Yeah, if you had a steel plate and you ran it 20 feet, it would probably sag, right? It would.
And so there were some issues. So rather than so there's a lot of people all trying now, and we're right in the 1900s. And as you and I both know, there's World's Fairs going on. Technology is exploding everywhere. And here comes a Belgian engineer by the name of Alphonse Halbo. And Alphonse went, okay, I got wrought iron. Steel is coming on. I got wrought iron. And he figured out a way of actually rolling the hot metal into the shape of an eye.
Okay.
That was his giant thing. And
like a capital I with
changing the shape suddenly gave us the geometry of strength. And this is really honestly the birth of modern engineering, because the Romans gave us the arch. We already knew shapes were important.
Right.
We knew how to build a culvert. We knew how to build things, but now we want to go taller and higher.
Right.
So the other real interesting side effect of the I-beam was that it could also fill a space.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, what do I mean by that? So here we're putting all of these wood beams together, right? And we got wrought iron T connectors, just like building a gate.
Right.
But they leave gaps.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
Which air, moisture, now we're leaving a
Critters.
gap.
Yeah.
Fire.
Yeah.
But if you used an I-beam, you had the two flat surfaces to connect to, and there was no gap. That I-beam secured all of that.
I was just about to ask if there was any method for making these interlocking.
Well,
if that's related at all, or if that
it
fills in the gap.
Because Eiffel was working on how to connect all of these things. Mr. Alphonse over here figured out how to give us two working surfaces to work with and block that gap and give us strength. And his proof in the pudding was it was first used in construction for the Rand McNally building in, Joe, your favorite city, Chicago, in 1889.
Well, I was going to say, because you said something at the beginning of this, it really got me thinking. The other thing, too, is it seems to me it builds in a little bit of flexibility. It allows for movement. But I was curious because it seems like a lot of things came into play all at once. For one thing, you started by mentioning the Great Fire in Chicago. And so, okay, we want to do something that it's not going to just completely collapse if it starts on fire. So we're thinking of that. We're thinking, too, everybody's moving to these cities, and the only place to go is up. So we need to build vertically, and we need to – it seems like there was a lot of cultural and there was a lot of sociological influences leading to this discovery. And it's interesting when you look at the population, what happens to a city when you go vertical. So,
and Mr. Alphonse's invention got picked up by a guy by the name of Andrew Carnegie.
Okay.
And Carnegie founded the Carnegie Steel Corporation there in Pittsburgh, and he began rolling out steel beams, sections, I-beams, and sheets. And his version of the beam was called a Carnegie beam.
Gee, big surprise.
I know you're shocked about that. But here's what suddenly happened. When somebody the size of Carnegie got hold of the idea, steel now became the more predominant material rather than wrought iron. So now steel was cheap and easy to produce. We could make lots of it. We could make it in different shapes. We can make it in different sizes. We could roll it out in different lengths.
Yeah.
And now suddenly, and then you have visionaries like Eiffel sitting up here going, how far can I push this?
Right.
How high can I take this? And as you have now kind of a perfect storm of people gathering around an idea as simple as the shape of the material.
Right.
Were there, in its inception, were there other shapes that were considered at the time? And is the basic formula for creating steel the same, or are we still fiddling with the compounds?
That's interesting. I didn't think about the different shapes.
We've continued to play with the chemical makeup of steel, but fundamentally, no. Steel is basically a 2 or 3% carbon, and then there's all types of ratings of steel and all that, from surgical steel to construction steel to sheet metal.
Damascus steel is one of my favorites.
It's all there. It's all there. So welcome to as much technology as you can cram into just basically a single product. And yes, a wide variety of shapes were out there. There were I-beams, H-beams. There were and the easiest one to give you is like, look at the edge of a piece of cardboard, and you'll see a fascinating pattern there.
There we go.
H-beam, though, is sort of a cheat because it's basically an eye in a different direction.
That's true. Yep. It's on its side. there's more to talk about here in our history of great building materials, and we'll do that when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Well done. In fact, you did so well. I'm going to note this on your file in the commendation section. Oh, there's lots of room here. Did well. Enough.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Weird. And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. I guess we finally activated the text lines. We'll get to those in a minute. And we've got a lot to get to. We also want to continue our conversation about the history of great building materials, which we've been discussing. But before we get to any of that, let's talk about our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. I bet you this is the time of year they like the best, Allan. I mean, as long as it's not pouring rain or something, but, putting roofs on in the winter doesn't sound all that fun to me.
Now, is this transitionary season with expansion and contraction also apply to roofs, just like your gas leak discussion?
Why not, man?
Yes,
it's just like, it's interesting because I really like this partnership we've got going. We've got Groundworks taking care of the base of your home, the foundation of your home, and then from top to bottom, then we have Big M Roofing and Remodeling. They handle the roofing of your home, but they handle siding, windows, gutters, everything about the exterior protection of your home, and all remodeling except kitchens. He doesn't want to do that. I wonder where he lands on bathrooms.
Kitchens and bathrooms. He don't want to do it.
He doesn't want to do it. He just doesn't care.
I wonder if he just had like a traumatic bathroom experience.
Yeah, Jay is very vehement about that, but every other type of remodeling project is on the table. But of course, we always lean heavily into his roofing expertise because these are, well, for one thing, he's always 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. And if you're into rankings, Jay is one of the top-rated roofers in the entire region. He's always, like we said, 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. He's a GAF Master Elite Installer. And they don't just hand those certificates out. You have to go through training. All of his technicians have to be trained in that. And that's because these are roofing systems that they're installing. These are so well engineered and so well constructed that, well, for one thing, they're going to lower the cost of your utility bill. They help the roof last longer. And as a matter of fact, they offer a lifetime transferable warranty, which is a pretty cool thing, especially if you think you might be selling your house in a few years. That's a big sales point to be able to offer the new owner a transferable warranty. But also, gutters and windows and sidings, they it looks simple. It's funny how these things always look overly simple, but if they're not put in correctly and if they're not engineered well, it just opens up all sorts of problems. And that's why you need the experts at Big M Roofing and Remodeling. Not to mention the fact that one of the things that sets Jay apart is the fact that he is a former insurance agent, which is very helpful to you because if you have damage to your home that may be covered by your homeowner's insurance, Jay can help you navigate that entire process, which is no small thing because you really need an advocate in that situation. So if you suspect you have any damage to your home, Jay should be the first one you call. He'll give you it's a free consultation. He'll come over, he'll assess the situation, and if there's a path forward, it's going to save you a lot of money and it's going to give you some great peace of mind. We also love the business culture at Big M Roofing and Remodeling because Jay brings an energy and enthusiasm to every project that he deals with, and he also encourages you to call him directly. So get in touch with Jay. You can call him at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. Well, Max, callers and texters always go to the front of the line. So what do we got here?
Well, first, let's begin with a question.
Okay.
Anonymous texter 1556, thank you for the question. What is the difference between the I-beam and the H-beam? Which is just literally the same question I asked. It's like, it just literally just turned on its side.
Yeah, because an I-beam, if you're looking at it, I just happen to be looking at a letter H now. But I would think from an engineering perspective, the I-beam just seems a lot more. So I'm just thinking it would be less prone to sagging or something, but I don't know.
It's more about application and size.
Okay.
So the I-beam is generally regarded as the actual best and the strongest shape.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to caveat. It depends on the application. It depends upon the weight and distribution that you're trying to support. So which is the actual strength to weight ratio that you're looking for? And the reason that there is an H-beam is that an H-beam is generally about durability of a cross-section.
Okay.
I-beams are the lighter weight. The H-beam is kind of when things really got real. So it is really down to application. But yes, the H-beam is a little bit bigger, and depending upon the actual size and weight ratio, H-beams can even actually be stronger than an I-beam in certain applications.
It's good for when all H breaks loose.
Yeah.
Yes, it's I-beams are really good to prevent buckling. They handle they handle a lot of stress. But the H-beam, and again, it depends on application, and this is why architects and engineers are smart people and have lots of math that figure out which is the proper application at that time.
Yeah, because you're saying that, and I'm picturing, okay, well, like a I-beam going up and down, and because I always think of movement, like we said. So I'm thinking, okay, if you were going vertical, the I-beam seems like it would kind of help stabilize, and if it's going across. But then there's probably those applications where maybe it has to twist a little, or I guess that's what engineers are for. But yeah. So all shapes are on the table.
Yeah, when they're looking at the architecture of a building, when you're actually sitting down as the architect and you're going, what is going to be my wind shear? What is going to be my weight ratio? How much have I got to carry? Mm-hmm. We have a wide variety of sizes and shapes of both I and H beams to get the job done. And properly designed, these things can last hundreds of years. The problem with both of them is, of course, they're metal.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be in a high humidity environment, they can, of course, corrode.
Yeah. So that's always, and then whatever the rivets and everything are, you got to make sure they're not corroding.
You got to weld and rivet. Yes.
Yeah. All right. That was a pretty good one, anonymous caller. So what else do we got?
Agent 732, of course.
Okay.
Good/bad business idea. Build a playground, but the slides and equipment are upscaled for adults. No kids allowed.
I kind of like that.
Wait, so, okay, and if you're wondering what that's all about, this is International Ideas Month. So we want good and bad ideas. Now, from a business model standpoint, adults have a lot more money than kids, obviously. So would you charge for this? Would you charge admission for this?
Well, my idea of the perfect adult playground would involve a mini excavator and a mini skid loader. And, for a price, I'll let you move dirt around.
Right.
Because I got news for you. That's a lot of fun.
I guess it depends on how extreme we're talking. If it's an adult park with a slide, I think you need a slide that's like 200 feet tall or something, don't you? I mean, and then could it be sponsored by like an injury attorney or something like that? Would they fund the building of this park?
Would you have a liability waiver that you sign at the beginning?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility. It's not the worst idea in the world, and for all we know, maybe there are places like this. So
I think you got to be careful though when you Google search adult playground.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so maybe. Okay, good point. Well, let's move on. All right, Agent 732. Well, you're going in the hopper because, Max, you're keeping tally, right?
Correct.
Okay, so by the end of the month, we're going to see whose idea is either the best or the worst. Maybe there's one for each category. And then Allan is going to award them a Tool Talk Radio swag package.
There you go.
There's some pretty good stuff in that. I mean, don't scoff at that. That tool belt. Those
are highly sought after.
They don't last long.
Our nail aprons are very popular.
Exactly.
And we'll also give you all a.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
you get bragging rights.
Shout your name from the rooftops. All right. Well, Allan, before the break, in our great moments in building history, we are talking about the I-beam. I kind of wondered if we could also at least tee off the tempered glass conversation
Okay.
because I think, we this is going to be an ongoing series of the history of great building materials, but I see a big correlation between, when you go to a city, that's what you see. You see glass. It's everywhere. And you can't just put any type of glass in there. So when did tempered glass become something? Because some of this glass, you could throw a baseball at it and it's not going to even budge or anything.
You've got your standard plate glass, which, has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And that is just basically, melted sand, melted silicone. The advantage to it is you can see through it. It's strong. It holds up. The disadvantage is it breaks, you'll die.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's sharp, horrible pieces everywhere.
Yeah.
Then you get to a tempered glass, and this is basically the best example I can give that people will understand is it's a quenched glass.
I don't know what quenched means.
Well, let's talk about a sword. So you see the guy beating on the sword. He's got it in the forge, and he's ready to temper the blade and make it strong. And he turns around and takes the flaming hot sword and dips it in the cold oil.
And it's oil. I thought it was water.
It sizzles. And well, it could be water. Water has a tendency to make things a little more brittle. But there you go. And you have now made a tempered sword. The original tempered glass was basically dripping molten glass into ice water.
Is it because it squeezes? I'm picturing it just the temperature shock makes it compress.
It is.
It tightens it up.
The space in the molecules. Yeah.
Interesting.
So the actual first patent was a chemist by the name of Rudolf Seiden. I'm probably messing his name up.
Yeah.
He came in and developed the actual mechanism for a tempered glass.
Okay.
And so what's so hot about that is it's strong. It's 3 times stronger than plate glass. It can handle all kinds of temperatures. It handles impact and stress because it's tough.
I have a glass-related question when we come back.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of advantages for having glass. Plus, you get to look out of it. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Everything that has transpired has done so according to my design.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And you just never know what's going to activate the text line, Allan. But we're talking about, in our Great Moments in Building History, an ongoing series that we're going to be doing called The History of Great Building Materials. We were learning earlier about I-beams and the history of the I-beam and maybe just some of the engineering behind it. And now we're shifting to tempered glass because, steel structures, that's one of the great advantages. You can put a lot of glass. We see that in our cities, and now you can look out of that glass, but it has to be tempered and it has to be strong. But some listeners are chiming in, right, Max?
Well, first, let's start with one of the questions that it's about glass for some reason. Oh, wait, we'll first mention a comment about glass before we mention the question about glass.
Okay.
Agent 732 again, I guess it's just a glass enthusiast. A Prince Rupert drop is the strongest glass ever made. The bulb is impossible to break since its molten glass is dripped into water. The outside is colder than the inside, so you have constant pressure differential keeping it intact. But if you snip the tail, it explodes.
Oh, so it's using pressure.
Mm-hmm.
He said a bulb, like a light bulb.
Well, what it does is it's a drop of molten glass, and the outside has compressed to the point it has put pressure on the inside and made it amazingly strong. However, its weak point is a tiny little bit. And these came about in the 17th century from the King of the Rhine. His name was Robert. And
I thought it was Rupert.
No, because this was Prince Rupert's drops.
Oh, Prince Rupert's a cool name.
Rupert was just more along the lines of he helped bring it to Britain.
Yes.
Okay.
The Duke of Cumberland.
Yes. So, but what it did was it created a compression because the exterior was harder than the interior and holding it in this pressurized state. Now, this stuff is shockingly strong.
I saw a video online where it says 38 special versus a Prince Rupert drop, and the bullet shattered.
Yeah, this makes glass unbelievably strong.
It's interesting because when you're describing this, I'm just thinking of the tensions involved to keep this thing solid. And then, like you said, though, if you snip off the end,
it'll explode.
It'll blow. Okay, so pretty interesting. All right, Prince Rupert's drop. Then what else do we got, Max?
Our good friend Norman Rockwell, back from the dead.
Oh, good.
All right, Norman.
Norman got his caffeine this morning finally.
Yep.
Okay.
How is float glass made?
Okay, now that's where it gets interesting.
Now you got to describe float glass. I
What
don't
is
know
float
that
glass?
Yeah.
Okay, float glass is a process, and I love the guy that invented this stuff. That is Sir Alistair Plinklington in the UK from Plinklington Brothers Glassmaking. And he created a method of getting rid of having to grind and polish and sand, because he would lay down a bed of molten tin. He would melt tin. So, it's kind of like making a pewter something. He would have a bed of molten tin, and then he would add the glass to it.
Yeah.
Pour the molten glass over it. And what would happen, because of the weights and surface tensions, it would create flat glass.
Where did the molten tin go? Did it mix in with the glass?
Nope. You peel them apart.
Oh, okay. So that was a temporary thing.
Well, what it was it was a perfectly flat, gravity-driven surface to pour the glass against.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay,
so
it
now,
gave it a nice
if we poured
flat...
molten glass on this table, you would get an imprint of the table.
It's like when you pour pancake batter in a pan, you're getting a flat. It flattens itself out.
You're going to get an imprint of the pan. In this case, the pan is molten tin.
Okay.
So that gave you flat glass. Now you could build glass whatever size and thickness and flatness that you wanted. And, of course, this could go on to become car glass. It could be changed into other types of glass. So welcome to the float process.
So thank you, Mr. Pilkington, and another great British name, Bickerstaff.
Yes.
Bickerstaff, yeah. Okay. Good, serious names there. So, okay. Wow, we're learning a lot about the history of glass. And,
glass, we fought wars over glass. Glass blowers, decorative glass. If you've ever watched somebody actually manipulate liquid glass or molten glass, it is absolutely fascinating.
Do I have time to ask my glass question like I teed off?
Throw it out.
So I was curious about whether or not you could replace, well, this would be a total heresy, but if you could replace certain ancient historical structures, the glass that they used in there, like let's just say stained glass, and you could substitute it with a tempered glass or a tempered stained glass, or it's like, or are there some instances where it's better to have tempered glass to leave the historical mark on it?
You mean non-tempered glass?
Non-tempered glass, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sure like at Notre Dame, Notre Dame, they had to rebuild because so it wasn't all the same glass.
The stained glass that you're talking about is actually glass with a color in it. Now, once you've added your color to it, how you finish that glass is entirely up to you. So you get a little bit of the glass blower's technique from 1,000 years ago, and you can bring it forward. And anybody that actually still makes stained glass windows of our glass today is quite a bit stronger than ancient glass. The other thing that you get to remember about all of this when you start talking about the weight of glass, if you can find an old, really old, like a couple of 100 years old, of sheet glass that was installed in something like a lighthouse, if you will measure the base of it, the base will be just slightly bigger than the top of it.
Oh, so
because glass is never truly not a fluid.
Okay, so even though it looks solid and rigid and everything, it's maybe when it's exposed to the sun and heat and cold, it's
perpetually
sagging.
a semi-solid liquid.
Interesting. Well, that explains a lot, too, because I'm thinking of, we always talk about our home moving. You never think of the glass moving, but, I mean, if you've got wood and metal and all these things interacting with each other and expanding and contracting, it's why you got to keep your house tight.
My question is, though, do you always need to keep your house tight? I'm thinking of, with earthquake proofing is you need to have some degree of flexibility. And so is it all right that our glass or that our steel or that our other structures slightly move?
Well, when you get into the science, that's a whole show right there. The science of earthquake building. Either you build it so tough the earthquake doesn't move it, or you build it to shimmy, shake, and boogie with the earthquake.
That sounds like something we need to tee off for just as we did with the I-beams and tempered glass. Earthquake proofing sounds like our next idea.
Well, maybe we'll jump on that. And speaking of ideas, real quickly, you can get in touch all week. Just go to
all month.
It's International Ideas Month. So send us your best ideas and worst ideas from home improvement, and somebody at the end of the month is going to be getting a Tool Talk Radio swag pack. All right, you guys, it's time to get out of here. The show is over. So until, let's see. So on behalf of my buddy, Allan Gilbreth, and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.